Alright, so this is gonna be part 9 to what if Deku had Bond's powers. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bad when the presence is greatness. 'Cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness. That I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
So in the last part, we just got done with basically the beginning of the training arc, or the forest training arc. So in this one, we're gonna go over the ending of that, and then maybe get into one for all fight, depending on how far we get into it. So yeah. So last time, like I said, Deku basically found out why Koda doesn't like heroes. So we're gonna jump off of that point, or from that part. So it would basically be the first day of training. So with Deku, he has some things he can improve on, but there's a lot of things that he's very good at and way ahead of his class in. So he tells, or Aizawa tells him to basically throw the ball, because he thinks that Deku's the one who's improved the most, which he does. I believe I said that he was like 10 times like a athlete or something like that, and like the farthest someone has thrown a ball without any assistance was like 400 meters. So if we times that by 10, that was 40, or not 40, 4,000 meters. So we can increase that again by, let's say, another 10, because I think that Deku is probably at least 10 times stronger than he was at the beginning. So that would be like, what, 40,000 meters? It's a big improvement. So Aizawa tells the class that a lot of people, or most people, won't improve this much, as they're really focused, or it really has to depend on like people not really focusing on their work. So he told everyone that Deku's kind of an exception, because him just surviving attacks is improving his quirk, because his quirk is more of a passive ability, at least on that part, with the immortality, but not really the strength absorption part. So yeah, so he basically tells Deku to act like a, not really act like a punching bag, but similar to that, kind of help the other students with their fighting style and things like that, and kind of improve his, because he's not really that great. He has no style right now, I guess you could say. So he tells Aizawa tells him to kind of pick a style, and this is where Deku actually does, and this is where he gets his 3-section snap. He believes that having a weapon like this might improve his fighting style, since it'd be able to more easily steal things, as well as just be generally better because of the long reach and things like that. So that's what Aizawa agrees on. Deku doesn't have it yet, but he will in the future. So after that, like I said before, he tells him to help other students, because right now, in terms of strength and speed and durability, he's way above the other students. At least not durability. I think there's a few that would be a little bit better with durability than Deku is, but you get the idea. So he decides to help Tokoyami, since no one can really be around him when he's in that kind of darkness, except for really Deku, since he's gonna survive it. So he helps Tokoyami. He asks Tokoyami what he wants to do, and he says that he wants to really control Dark Shadow when it's in, all darkness. So Deku agrees to kind of help him to kind of do that. So yeah. So they go into the cave, and Dark Shadow's going all crazy, right? So what Deku does is that every time he's going crazy, he kind of just hits him. It's kind of there to almost like train him, but again, Dark Shadow is very strong, especially when he's in the dark and raging out, so he hits him back. So it's kind of like him fighting Dark Shadow. So this goes on for a couple of hours basically, and when they both come out, they're kind of both tired. So this is basically the first day of training. After that's on the second day, this is where Deku asks Aizawa why isn't All Might here, and he says that All Might kind of attracts the villains and he doesn't really want anyone to really come here, so we thought it was best that he wasn't gonna come. Deku's like, oh sure, fine. He's kind of disappointed, but at the same time he understands why it's happening. Later on, after the train's done, they kind of all have to prepare their own kind of food. So that's what Deku does with the help of the rest of the different classes, because if you've seen Seven Deadly Sins, you know that Bon is pretty good at cooking, and Deku would probably be the same, just because I think he'd be someone who would help his mother out a lot, and because his father's not there, it would really be appreciated. So that's what Deku would do. So with this, he would help kind of with the chopping of different ingredients and things like that. After they have everything done, this is where Deku would try to find Koda to give him some of the food that they made, because he's worried about him and he wants to basically know he's safe. So this very much, all the girls in Class 1A, like I said, this was going to be a harem. I don't know about that, but anyways, they're very much impressed because Deku is taking initiative and being almost like a father figure to Koda at this point, and that very much impresses them. So anyways, he gives him the food and Koda just kind of ignores it, right? So he just leaves it there and basically leaves. So after a while, this is where they're gonna do that kind of test of courage thing where they go into the forest, but there isn't like an even number of people, so everyone wants to go with Deku, but he just says, I'll just go by myself and everyone else can have their kind of fun, right? So that's what happens. Everyone kind of goes off into the forest, and yeah, they kind of do their thing. After that, this is where, if you're wondering why they have an uneven number, it's because of the people who have to kind of study because they failed the test beforehand. So what happens is that the League of Villains actually come out and attack Pixie Bob, I think, or yeah, it was a Pixie Bob using the magnets and basically almost knock her out. And this is where Deku gets the idea of going for Koda. So Mandolin, I think her name was, the person with the kind of telepathy quirk, basically tells Deku to warn Aizawa and that she'll be safe there, or not really safe, but she'll handle it. But then Deku says, what about Koda? He's still out there. And she's like, well, Koda's still out there? Can you go get him? Right? Something like that. So after that, this is where Deku starts running towards the forest and trying to find Koda. Trying to go back to that mountain to find Koda. Halfway through, he meets Aizawa, who just got done fighting his own person from the League of Villains. So he tells Aizawa that there are a bunch of villains basically here that are trying to or I guess no, he wouldn't find Aizawa first, so scratch that. He went to the mountain first, and this is where he finds Muscular going against, or trying to fight, well, not really trying to fight, but trying to hit Koda. So before Muscular can actually go hit Koda, you just see Deku just kind of come in and snatch Koda out of there. And this is where Muscular says, oh, so you're the immortal kid that's all for one once. And Deku's like, who? I don't know what you want, but you're not gonna hurt this kid. So after that, And this is where Muscular says, "So you really think you could beat me?" That's tough talk coming from a kid. So, what happens is that Deku basically tells him, "I don't know if I can. Do you want to test it out?" And Muscular just says, "Well, I like your attitude, kid." So they start fighting. So what happens is that Deku and him just kind of do like clash fists for a bit, and this really basically they're pretty equal in strength. So after that, this is where Muscular starts laughing and said, "Wow, there hasn't been someone that pushed me this far since One for All, or All for One." So he starts increasing his quirk even more, because if you remember, when he first fought Deku, he wasn't even going 100%. So this time, the muscles even go a lot larger, and they start fighting even harder. So Deku's kind of on the back end, getting pushed back, and then this is where his bones actually start to break from clashing so many fists, or clashing so many times. His forearm kind of breaks, right? So after that, this is where Muscular starts having a lot of fun, right? Because he's a sadist. So after that, Deku has to really deflect the punches with just one arm until his other arm heals, which it does, and he starts doing it again. But again, his arms break, so he starts getting pummeled into the ground by Muscular. So after that, Muscular thinks he got him down, and he goes back to try to go for Koda. He knows that Deku's immortal, but he doesn't really know exactly how it works. He thinks that Deku might be out for a bit, so he has a chance to go and fight or take out Koda. Before that happens, this is where Deku actually grabs him by the shoulder, him being fully recovered at this point, and he actually starts absorbing or taking Muscular's strength. He says Fox Hunt, I believe that was it, or Fox Physical Hunt, and this is where he just starts basically absorbing his strength into Deku, and he basically throws Muscular back, and Muscular feels a lot weaker. So after that, this is where they start fighting again, but Deku has a major advantage, and this is where Muscular's info kind of fails him, because they don't know about this part about him being able to steal physical strength or different things, being able to steal things. So he tries to fight Deku, and he is in the same predicament Deku was in, but this is where Deku steals Muscular's sight, and Muscular already had pretty bad sight to begin with, since he only had one eye. So he takes him out basically relatively easily. He slams Muscular into the ground using his strength, and with his with his strength combined with Muscular's, he takes Koda and goes through the forest, and then this is where he meets Aizawa. He gives him the rundown. Both of them basically talk about what's happening, and he gives Koda to Aizawa to keep him safe. After that, he goes and tries to find the other students. Who he finds first is Shoji, who is kind of bleeding, and what he does is he tells Deku that there was a villain who was fighting me and I got cut, and Tokoyami kind of went he started to rage out. So even though Deku helped him, it's not really gonna be in an instant transfer or an instant kind of control, because even in the movie, for the second movie where Tokoyami is in, his dark shadow actually did rage out, and this would have been like months, or even it would have been at least months after this part in the manga or the anime, and even then it wasn't even controlled, so, or he couldn't stop himself from raging. So with Deku being there, it would have helped a lot, but it wouldn't be a perfect solution, if that makes sense. So at this point, Deku's kind of tired because he used physical hunts. So he isn't gonna pass out, but he is physically tired. So what he does is that he tells Shoji to kind of run, and he'll basically take out Dark Shadow so that he becomes docile again. So what happens is that Shoji runs, and Deku gets into a clearing in the forest, and he yells for Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow appears or hears it and runs his way, and Deku just is sitting there reeling in for a punch, and he leaps off the ground, kind of like how Deku usually does, but obviously not breaking his bones, and he basically just one-shots Dark Shadow. After that, Tokoyami gets back to normal, and both of them, or all three, go to try to see where the villain was that harmed him, because remember, I think it was Sea Moon or Moonfish, something like that, was actually, no, not Sea Moon, that's JoJo, but I think it was Moonfish, was actually attacking the students there too. So that's what they go for. So they eventually do find the villain attacking Bakugo and what's his name, Todoroki. So when they're getting close enough, Deku is getting even more tired after having to fight Black Shadow, or Dark Shadow I mean, and having to use physical hunts. This is where he tells Shoji to basically throw him, and he'll take him out in one hit. So that's what he does. Shoji throws Deku, and Sea Moon, or not Sea Moon, I keep saying Sea Moon, I think it's Moonfish. Moonfish basically turns around and uses his spikes, or his like metal teeth, to skewer kind of Deku. Deku's not affected by this because he's used to the pain, and punches through Moonfish and hits him in the jaw, or hits him in the face, and this knocks him out, and he goes toppling over. Deku then just takes out all of the kind of metal like teeth that were inserted into him, as if they were skewers. He takes them out, and his wounds start to slowly heal. After that, this is where he becomes even more tired, as the toll is getting more and more because of physical hunt. So he starts to become kind of sleepy as this is happening. Then Todoroki and Bakugo kind of join the party and try to keep him awake using kind of tiny explosions. And yeah, Deku says that they were kind of I think they're after him, and he feels really bad for it. He feels bad for being so show-offy, I guess, being the spotlight and being someone who caused all this basically. Shoji just reassures Deku that it wasn't his fault, that they're just villains and they do the worst things you can imagine. This gives Deku a bit of confidence, and they continue with their kind of fight, or with their kind of I guess trail. So they go and start running on the trail to kind of meet up with Pixie Bob and Mandolin, I believe her name was. So on their way there, they find Uraraka and Uraraka and Farappy fighting Toga. Toga. So as this is happening, they kind of have her pinned down, but actually they would have had her pinned down, because I don't think or I guess she would have got embarrassed a bit because of Aizawa, I keep saying, but Uraraka basically being in love with Deku. Even though they are in a relationship, it is that typical anime trope for the girl to still get embarrassed. So that would have happened, and this would give her opportunity to basically suck Uraraka's blood, and this is where the rest of the gang would actually just come in and see Toga basically escaping, and they would chase after her, and Dabi would be there to kind of block it with fire, as well as Twice being there. So they start fighting these, basically the trio from the League of Villains, and what happens is that Dabi is fighting against Deku, and he is pretty relentless. He just keeps on burning Deku, and Deku keeps on regenerating, and Deku's getting even more and more tired because of that physical hunt. It still has a backlash, like I said, which just makes the user tired. So with this fire being here, it really does keep Deku awake, and what happens is that Dabi turns up the flames and kind of focuses the fire towards Deku's head, which basically he tries to block it with his arms, which get burned to the bone, and Deku's face is just burns. It's melted off, and Deku basically lies on the floor, because although he has immortality, if you were to cut off the head or things like that, it's not like the body continues to move. At least I think that's how it worked, I believe. So Dabi tries to go for Deku, tries to pull him by the collar and tries to take him, but this is where Deku starts to regenerate, and what he does is that he hits Dabi in the leg, causing him to let go. But this actually breaks Dabi's leg, and this was actually strong enough to break his bone. So with not really having a chance to take Deku, they all have to kind of leave, which they do using Kurogiri, and so do the other villains that are there. With only, I believe all the villains leave except for Moonfish and Muscular. So yeah, that's gonna be the end of the part. If you made this to the end of the video, please give it a like, and please comment down CS so I know you support the channel. If you want to see more content like this, you can go and subscribe. And if you want to see my videos early, you go on Patreon, patreon.com/ComicSansManHernandez, and all you have to do is just pledge $1 at the very least to get these videos early, or you could pledge more if you want to support the channel that way. Each tier in my Patreon gets its own monthly rally, in where they're able to request a drawing for me, basically anything, but there is some restrictions, as you could guess. But anyways, with that being said, let's give a shout out to the patrons over on Patreon, or the patrons over on Patreon. So let's start with our gold tier. So there's going to be Isaiah Perez, Alan James, Lyco, and the Pirate King. In our platinum tier, we have Pandaman 8. So if you want to join them and support me that way, you can, or you don't have to, as all my videos will be free on YouTube eventually. So you don't have to if you can't, or if you don't want to. It's all up to you. But anyways, with that being said, this is gonna be the video. So yeah.